Shalom. Hiram Yashra'al, servant of the Most High Yahuwah and his son Yahusha, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. Brothers and sisters, this is part 2 of the series, Do the Scriptures Teach a Flat Domed Earth? And so, brothers and sisters, in part 2, in this part, what we're going to be talking about is the earth and its foundations. So we've already talked about the deep and the waters below. We've talked about the waters above. We've talked about the firmament or the expanse. So we talked about these in part 1. But in part 2, we're going to deal with the earth itself and its foundations. So in Bereshit, which is Genesis chapter 1, and I'm going to start in verse 9. The word reads, And Elohim said, Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it came to be so. And Elohim called the dry land earth, and the collection of waters he called seas. And Elohim saw that it was good. And Elohim said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the plant that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it came to be so. And the earth brought forth grass, the plant that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the third day. So here we have the third day of creation, brothers and sisters. And one significant thing that I want to point out is how that Yah calls the dry land earth, but the water he calls seas. Now, what we were taught in public school and through the media is that the whole globe system that they taught us includes the seas and the land, and all of that all together composes a planet called Earth. That's what we were taught. So we were taught since we have been children. But here in the Scriptures, it's the dry land itself that is called Earth, and then the water is called seas. And so it doesn't put it all together into one system like we were taught. But what I want to talk about with the earth is, the first thing I want to talk about is how the earth, according to the Scriptures, it does have extremities. It does have what's called the ends of the earth. In other words, there is a point on the earth. There are points to which you can go on the earth where you cannot go any further. Now, the way we were taught about a globe earth where there is no limits. I mean, you can go around the world this way, you can go around the world that way, you can go around the world this way, and so there's no extremities or no endpoints, and no matter where you go, if you go far enough, you're just going to end up at your starting point. That's not what the Scriptures teach, brothers and sisters, that the earth does have ends. The earth does have extremities. Now, don't get me wrong on this. I realize that men have sailed around the world. Men have flown around the world. Because, and that's not something I'm going to get real deep into right now, but there are areas of the world that can be circumnavigated, but then there are areas of the world that cannot be. So you do your own research, you'll see what I'm talking about, where there are ends of the earth, extremities of the earth, where you cannot go any further. This is what the Scripture teaches. We're going to get into this. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64. Chapter 28, verse 64. This is where I want to go first. Deuteronomy chapter 28, no doubt, is a very familiar chapter for many of us Israelites. But Deuteronomy 28, in verse 64. The word reads, And Yahuwah shall scatter you among all peoples from one end of the earth to the other, and there you shall serve other mighty ones, which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood and stone. So it makes that reference from one end of the earth to another. So, brothers and sisters, a ball or a planet, it doesn't have ends. It doesn't have any ending point. That whether you're going north to south or whether you're going east to west, you can always go round and round and end up at the same place where you started. But here it talks about being scattered to the ends, from one end of the earth to the other. Now keep that in mind. Now Jeremiah chapter 16. Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19. The word reads, O Yahuwah, my strength and my stronghold and my refuge in the day of distress, the nation shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, Our fathers have inherited only falsehood, futility, and there is no value in them. So they come from the ends of the earth, from the extremities of the earth. In other words, some of these people come from places where, if you keep going in that direction, you can't go any further. And so they're coming from the ends of the earth. Now, in Daniel chapter 4, and I'm going to read two verses here. Daniel 4, verses 10 and 11. The word reads, Now the visions of my head on my bed were these. I looked and saw a tree in the midst of the earth, in its height great. The tree became great and strong, and its height reached to the heavens, and it was visible to the ends of all the earth. Now we're going to deal with this visibility thing later on in part 2 here. But what I want you to see here is this tree. Now I know this was a vision, but at the same time it said the tree in the midst of the earth, in the middle of the earth, and its height was great, and it was visible to the ends of all the earth, to the extremities of all the earth. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. All right, I know many of you are thinking that this is just symbolic, this is just metaphorical, that the way that it reads here, it could just be talking about far away places, that they're so far away that it could be said to be the ends of the earth. And these three verses that I brought forth to you, that I could see how they could be read like that, but I'm going to bring something else into the equation here, which I believe is going to help us to determine whether this phrase, ends of the earth, is symbolic or whether it literally means ends as in extremities of the earth, points at which you can't go any further. And that's going to be from the book of Enoch. And so now I know that some of you receive the book of Enoch as scripture, some of you don't. And as I said before, my position is that as long as what it's bringing forth does not contradict Genesis to Malachi, then I'm fine with it. And so I don't either endorse it or reject it, but I will bring it out because I know that many of you receive it as inspired scripture. And that's one thing we have to be careful with the book of Enoch, is that we could be all excited about the book of Enoch because it may support a certain subject or a belief that we want to believe. Like one thing that the book of Enoch talks about, it was Noah's birth, and it talks about how his color when he was born. And so there's teachings that surround that, and there are people that really push the book of Enoch for that reason. But what you have to realize is that if you're going to be pushing the book of Enoch like that, you have to understand everything Enoch is talking about. That we can't just push the book of Enoch here and then just deny it over here if we say that the book of Enoch is inspired scripture. Because when we look in the book of Enoch, as you'll see here, it's going to help answer the question, are the ends of the earth symbolic or are they literal when the scripture talks about them? So, but chapter 33, and we're talking about the ends of the earth now. All right, chapter 33, I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. It says, "From there I advanced toward the north to the extremities of the earth." Okay, to the extremities of the earth. Talking about the ends of the earth. "And I saw a great and esteemed wonder at the extremities of the whole earth. And I saw there heavenly gates opening into heaven, 3 of them distinctly separated. The northern winds proceeded from them, blowing cold, hail, frost, snow, dew, and rain. From one of the gates they blew mildly, but when they blew from the 2, it was with violence and force. They blew over the earth strongly." So what I want to point out about chapter 33 is that he talks about going to the extremities of the earth and seeing a great and esteemed wonder at the extremities of the whole earth. Now, I believe that this is the most specific passage that we've gone through here concerning the ends of the earth, because I believe that he was in literal places and saw literal things, that Yah allowed him to see these things. So that I don't see any room for symbolism as far as in this passage here. Yeah, there could be room in some of the other ones because of how it's laid out, but here it's talking about a specific place here in chapter 33 in the book of Enoch. So we're talking about the ends of the earth. And so what I want you to do is, I know we can't stand on the verses that I brought alone, but when we bring this all together, just look at it as one package. So combine what I've shared with you here about the ends of the earth with the other aspects of the earth that we're going to talk about in part 2 here, and then look at it as one unit, because that's one thing you're going to find is with the individual things I'm going to bring out, that it's not going to just be an open and shut case just out of a few passages that I bring out. But when you put it all together and you look at it as a whole, that's when it becomes apparent. That's when it becomes clear what the truth of the matter is. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the circle of the earth. We turn to Yeshayahu, which is Isaiah chapter 40. Because when people are asked to scripturally support a spherical earth, a ball earth, a globe earth, spinning on an axis, suspended up in outer space somewhere, that this is probably the main verse of Scripture that people go to here, and that is verse 22 of Isaiah chapter 40. It says, "It is He," speaking of Yahuwah, "it is He who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in." So we already talked about stretching out the heavens like a curtain, spreading them out like a tent to dwell in, showing a solid object being spread out. But what I want to concentrate on this time is talking about He who sits above the circle of the earth. Now, many take this circle of the earth to mean a ball or a sphere. They say, see, there it is. It's just like NASA shows us in their computer-generated images, which that's what that really is. If you do your research, that's one of the things you'll find. Those are not actual pictures of the earth that we've been shown all these decades. These are computer-generated images. But nonetheless, those who want to believe that that's what the earth looks like, that verse 22, they say that this is what that's referring to, sitting above the circle of the earth. But what we need to do brothers and sisters, we need to look at this word for circle, and it is 2329 in your Strong's Concordance in the Hebrew, and it's kug. That's how you pronounce it, kug. And what it means is a circle or a circuit. A circle or a circuit. Now, the word circuit, that's very significant, and I'm gonna show you why in a moment here. But if we go to chapter 22 of the same book, chapter 22 of Isaiah, I want to contrast this word circle with another word. 22:18 is what we want to look at here. 17 and 18. Let's look at 17 and 18. It says, "See, Yahuwah is hurling you away, O man, and is firmly grasping you, rolling you up tightly like a ball into a wide land. There you are to die, and there your esteemed chariots are to be the shame of your master's house." So this word ball here, it's different than kug. This word ball is dur, which is 1754 in your Strong's Concordance in the Hebrew. The word for ball, and the definition of it is a ball, like a sphere, three-dimensional object. Whereas that if they would have used this word ball or something similar to it, if it was meant to say that Yah sits upon the ball or the sphere of the earth. And if Yah sits upon it, then, where is he with all these supposed pictures of this spherical object, which is supposed to be the earth? Now we know that Yah is invisible, but at the same time, how can it be said that Yah just sits upon some tiny little ball in an infinite universe with trillions and trillions of other balls? If that's the case, it just doesn't make sense, brothers and sisters. But so circle and ball are two different things, and as you're going to see, because we're going to go through a couple of verses here which are going to show that this circle of the earth that it's talking about is a flat two-dimensional circle. It's not a three-dimensional ball or a sphere, but a flat two-dimensional circle. So we turn to Proverbs chapter 8, and this is the first verse we're going to look at. In Proverbs chapter 8, we're going to look at one verse here, brothers and sisters. We're going to look at verse 27 of Proverbs chapter 8. Because we're trying to determine what is this circle that it's talking about. He sits above the circle of the earth. Now, Proverbs chapter 8, verse 27. "When he prepared the heavens, I was there." This is wisdom speaking. "When he inscribed a circle on the face of the deep." There it is, brothers and sisters. Inscribed a circle on the face of the deep. You remember when we were in geometry class and we'd use those compasses. And you'd stick that point in the middle and you would draw a two-dimensional circle. Brothers and sisters, that's exactly what's going on here. When he inscribed a circle on the face of the deep. It has nothing to do with the sphere, and it has nothing to do with a ball, brothers and sisters. Now, Job, going to look at Job chapter 26. Because we're seeing that this circle that it's talking about is actually a circuit. A circuit. Job chapter 26. In Job chapter 26 and verse 10, it says, "A law of encirclement on the face of the waters until the end of light with darkness." So once again, a law of encirclement, circuit, on the face of the waters until the end of light with darkness. So apparently, when Yah brought the earth out of the waters, because remember, the waters were there first. And so if we're going to say that the earth is composed of a globe, a spinning globe in outer space, then what we would have to say is that it was just a big spinning globe of water. Just a big globe of a big ball of water at one time, in some way, somehow, that Yah kind of put a core in there and made some earth come up in all these different places in this big ball of water. Because remember, the water came first now. You see, so that's what you would have to believe. But the scriptures just talk about the face of the waters. And how this encirclement, this circle was inscribed on the face of these waters. Obviously a two-dimensional circle. And so apparently this was part of the process in Yah bringing forth the earth out of the waters. And so when it says he sits above the circle or the circuit of the earth, brothers and sisters, that's what he's talking about. He's not talking about a ball. It's two different things. And so we've talked about the ends of the earth, talked about the circle of the earth. What I want to talk about now is the foundations of the earth. Do you know that the earth has foundations? So, in Job 38, we're going to stay in Job here. We're going to look at verses 4 through 6. This is Yah speaking. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Yah not only laid the earth, he laid foundations underneath the earth. Declare if you have understanding. Who set its measurements, if you know, or who stretched the line upon it? Upon what were the foundations sunk, or who laid its cornerstone? It even talks about it having a cornerstone. So if it has a cornerstone, then is it possible that when it talks about the four corners of the earth that it's literal? And I'm just asking now, that is it possible that there was a cornerstone laid like he's talking about, and that you have a solid surface of four corners and a circle inscribed within that solid surface of four corners? Is that possible? I'm just asking now because it talks about a cornerstone being laid here for the foundations of the earth. So, I mean, either way you believe on that, you do have to believe that the earth has foundations. Now, Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 29. Now, this is wisdom speaking again. We've been here before. It says, when he set the clouds above, when he made the foundations of the deep strong. That's verse 28. Verse 29. When he gave the sea its law so that the waters would not transgress his mouth, when he inscribed the foundations of the earth. So, there's something underneath the earth, brothers and sisters, and it's called the foundations of the earth. Now, what exactly that looks like, I can't tell you exactly what that looks like, but I do know that the earth has foundations. A ball or a sphere does not have foundations, but a flat surface, a two-dimensional earth, it's just like a building you build. It has foundations underneath it, and then you build it upward. So, Isaiah 48 is the last one I want to look at here. Isaiah chapter 48, and we talk about the foundations of the earth. Yah is speaking once again. See, so much of what the scriptures talk about as far as the heavens and the earth, because people, especially intellectuals, modernistic thinkers, they like to say, well, people were so ignorant back then, and they spoke according to what they understood, and that they would not have been able to conceptualize things in the modern time. So they were shown things, and they described it to the best of their ability. Well, the problem with that, brothers and sisters, is a lot of what we're being taught about the heavens and the earth comes out of Yah's mouth himself. So was Yah behind the times? Was Yah not advanced enough? I mean, when he spoke these things came out of the mouth of Yah. Please remember that. All right, now, Isaiah 48, verse 13. Also, my hand has laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand has stretched out the heavens. See, the heavens is something solid. You don't stretch out empty air. You stretch out something solid, brothers and sisters. So, also my hand has laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand has stretched out the heavens. I call to them, let them stand together. All right, that's verse 13 out of Isaiah 48. So, like I said, each of these sections that I'm going through, the ends of the earth, the circle of the earth, the foundations of the earth, and we're going to go through a few more different aspects of the earth. By these things alone, by these, like, for example, what I explained to you about the foundations, no, that by itself doesn't make it an open and shut case and prove it, but put it all together at the end, and then you'll see it more clearly. So the next thing I want to talk about, and we'll go back to Job for this, is that beyond the earth is a place of nothingness. Beyond the earth. It even talks about beyond the earth. All right, in Job chapter 26. Job chapter 26, verse 7. It says, he it was who stretched out the north over emptiness, hanging the earth upon space. And in other Bibles it says, hanging the earth upon nothing. Now, one may look at this and say, oh, there it is. Talk about planet Earth hanging into outer space. But if we look further into this place of nothingness, we're going to look in the book of Enoch, and we're going to see this is not talking about outer space. But this is talking about a place of nothingness that Enoch describes, or the book of Enoch describes as being a pretty bad place. So, if we look at chapter 18, first Enoch, verse 13 of first Enoch, chapter 18, the word reads, and in the columns of heaven I beheld fires which descended without number, but neither on high nor into the deep. Over these fountains also I perceived a place which had neither the firmament of heaven above it, nor the solid ground underneath it, neither was there water above it, nor anything on wing, but the spot was desolate. And there I beheld 7 stars like great blazing mountains, and like ruachot intruding me, or like spirits entreating me. Then the messenger said, this place until the consummation of heaven and earth will be the prison of the stars and the hosts of heaven. The stars which roll over fire are those which transgress the commandment of Elohim before their time arrived, for they came not in their proper season. Therefore was he offended with them and bound them until the period of the consummation of their crimes in the secret year. So, that's what I'm talking about, brothers and sisters, this emptiness, this place of nothingness. It's not talking about outer space. This is talking about a place of judgment. Now, the next aspect of the earth that I want to look at is that it is immovable. Now, we're taught in school that the earth spins on an axis at 1,000 miles an hour, and so it makes one revolution every day, and then it spins around the sun at, I think it's 66 1,000 or million miles per hour. I don't know the exact speed, but at a great velocity, let's just say that, it's supposed to be revolving around the sun, and it makes one revolution every year. So we are taught that there's all kinds of movement of the earth, whether it's on the axis by itself or whether it's around the sun. But what does the scriptures teach? And so we're going to look at scriptures talking about the immovability of the earth, and how the earth is stationary. It does not move. In 1 Chronicles chapter 16, we're going to read one verse here, verse 30. The word reads, "Tremble before him, all the earth. The world also is firmly established, immovable." So when it says world here, now this word for world is 8398 in your Strong's Concordance, and it's defined as the habitable part of the earth. And so it talks about the world being established, and it is immovable. And so remember, he established the earth on foundations. We talked about that earlier. Now, back to Psalms. Psalm 93 is what we're going to look at next. Psalm 93, verse 1. The word reads, "Yahuwah shall reign, he shall put on excellency, he shall put on strength, Yahuwah shall put on strength, he shall gird himself. Indeed, the world is established, immovable." So we already talked about the world is the habitable part of the earth. It's established and immovable. It does not move. All right, now Psalm 96. 96, verse 10. The word reads, "Say among the nations, Yahuwah shall reign. The world also is established, immovable. He judges the peoples in straightness." So, the earth is not a spinning ball on an axis, and it doesn't revolve around the sun, because we're going to deal with that when we deal with the sun, moon, and stars in part 3, that we're going to see that it's the heavenly bodies that move and not the earth. The earth is established and immovable. So, the last aspect of the earth that I want to cover in part 2 here is visibility. Let's turn to Daniel chapter 4. We want to talk about visibility. What we need to ask ourselves as we read the following passages is that, does it make more sense that the earth is a sphere or a ball, or does it make sense that the earth is a flat plane? So remember, let's ask ourselves that as we read through this. In Daniel chapter 4, verses 10 and 11. The word reads, "Now the visions of my head on my bed," this is Nebuchadnezzar, "were these. I looked and saw a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height great. The tree became great and strong, and its height reached to the heavens, and it was visible to the ends of all the earth." Now, I realize that this is a vision, but at the same time, now that this tree is spoken of as being visible to the ends of the earth, to the extremities of the earth. Now, I realize this is a vision, but what we're going to do is we're going to tie this into something that's real. A little bit later on, a couple more passages, we're going to tie it into something that's not a vision, not a dream, but something that is very real. Now, Luke chapter 4. In Luke chapter 4, this is during the temptation of Yahushua, when he was led of the Ruach, led of the Spirit, into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Now, Luke chapter 4, verse 5. "And the devil, taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the reigns of the world in a moment of time." So all the kingdoms of the world, he took him up into a high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And so why, how in the world could he do that if the earth is not a flat plane, if the earth is a ball where you have some kingdoms on the other side of the ball, so to speak? How is that possible? And one may say, well, he could have just showed it to him in the spirit. Well, if he showed it to him in the spirit, why go up into a high mountain then? Why would you need to go up into a high physical location to see all the kingdoms of the world if you could just show it in the spirit in a moment of time? And so these are, I realize that this here, and then also the vision, that it may be controversial for some, that some of you may not be convinced because you're saying that this is not something normal or something that can expect to be seen in reality. But the last thing I'm going to bring out is something that will be seen in reality, and it is very real. And so if we take these two passages that I just brought out, now tie it together with what I'm getting ready to bring out here in Matthew 24. Because you can't say that this is something spiritual, and you can't say that this is something symbolic, because this is something that everybody on the earth will experience in its time. Now, Matthew chapter 24, in verse 30, the word reads, "And then the sign of the Son of Adam, the Son of Man, shall appear in the heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Son of Adam, the Son of Man, coming on the clouds of the heaven with power and much esteem." They're going to mourn because they're going to see him coming on the clouds. All right? Now, this is talking about the tribes of the earth. Now, we're going to get more specific than this. Let's go to Revelation chapter 1. Now, this is something that will happen in the physical realm. It can't be relegated to a vision or something spiritual. This is going to be a very real occurrence. Revelation chapter 1. Revelation chapter 1 and verse 7. The word reads, "See, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye shall see him, even they who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth shall mourn because of him." So every eye will see him. Now when he comes, he's going to be coming down. He's going to be, remember now, those messengers in the book of Acts said that he's going to come in like manner that he left. And so he left from the Mount of Olives, and he's going to come back to the Mount of Olives. He's not going to come and then just circle round and round and round and round. He is coming back in the same manner that he left. Every eye will see him. So how is that possible if the earth is not a flat plane, brothers and sisters? This is reality. So let's combine this reality here where every eye will see Yahushua when he comes. Because if the earth was a ball, then the people on the other side of the ball wouldn't be able to see him. You see, but if the earth is a flat plane, then it makes sense because he's going to shine that bright and it's going to be that powerful. But brothers and sisters, so let's tie together the vision of Nebuchadnezzar with a tree being so high that all the earth could see it, and then also Yahushua being shown all the kingdoms from a high mountain, all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. That when we tie that together with something real like this, then what we see, brothers and sisters, is that the only way you could have that kind of visibility where everybody on the earth can see something at one time is if the earth is a flat plane. And so just to review, we talked about the ends of the earth, talked about the circle of the earth, talked about the earth having foundations, talking about a place of nothingness beyond the earth. We talked about the immovability of the earth, and also we talked about visibility, where all the earth will be able to see one thing at one time, only possible on a flat plane. And so we'll be moving on to part 3. So with that, I will say, Shalom.